I have been able to live in the state of Alaska that is the crown of God's creation. I have seen a great deal of the world, and all in all, life has been grand and fulfilling. Keep me in your hearts, Alaska, as you will be forever in mine. Nearing the trail's end, signed by Hobo Jim. And so this was for him, Hobo Jim. Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Tim Hale.
Here.
Stephanie Nowers.
Here.
George McKee.
Here.
Robert Yunt.
Here.
Moki Tu.
Here.
Jesse Sumner.
Here.
Tam Bovee.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Okay, let's take a look at the agenda. Any changes? Mr. Hale?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move the reconsideration of 21-101 in front of the veto of resolution 21-101.
Okay, so there's a motion to move the reconsideration in front of the veto. Any objection? Okay, see no objection, that is done. Anything else on the agenda? Seeing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Let's everybody stand up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Yeah, let's do the
Should we go out now?
poster. Yep.
Okay, Mr. Brown and I are gonna come down. We're gonna do some presentations, and so we'll meet everybody down front. Mr. Brown, could you lead the way? Mr. Barkley's with us. Where do you want us? Okay.
I'll give you the official copies. All right, thank you, everybody. So we're going to do just a short presentation to present the first place winners of this year's 13th Annual Emergency Preparedness Poster Contest. So all of these winners created a poster that showed what emergency preparedness meant to them, and the community voted on that. So we're really appreciative and proud of their efforts, and we're just going to recognize those today. As I call your name, if you could just step up front here, and you'll receive a certificate from Mayor Halter. Thank you.
They get a backpack too?
They do. Thanks to the American Red Cross, they will also be getting a full family emergency preparedness kit. All right, Jacob Hartman.
Jacob? Just stay up here with us too.
Yep, go ahead and stay at the front of the room for a picture. Thank you. All right, Emily Williams. Jordan Schweitzer.
There you go.
Rayleigh Muhausen. And Talon Holden. All right, and Mayor Halter, you want to just step a little bit closer and then we'll take one more picture?
Let's have a big round of applause for these kids, please. Slide together. We can see going on. Get in there, Miss Man. Oh, I'm good, Mr. Man. All right, ready? Yeah. We got plenty of time. Take all the pictures. All right, kids, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, kids. Yeah. That little one is the cutest guy on earth there, right there. So Now, Dad. Okay. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Pledge of Allegiance.
We did.
We did it. Okay, like I said. Minutes, like I said, minutes. Are there any changes to the minutes? Madam Clerk?
Just so the assembly knows, I did send out an email earlier in the minutes. Some of the comments of Mr. Brown was cut off and it was brought to my attention by Assembly Member Bovee, and we did fix those.
Okay. Minutes are then approved as presented. Now, reports from cities. Any cities here? Houston, Palmer, Wasilla? Okay, I guess we'll dispense those. School district. Dr. Trady? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a brief presentation while we're waiting for that to come up. So really, I'm here to talk about the school site selection committee. I know it's not up right now. I'm stalling for time. I understand that there's resolutions are on consent agenda. I did bring 3 experts with me. Patty Ferens, the principal from American Charter, Brant Bowen, principal of Birch Tree, and Stacy McIntosh, the principal from Matsu Central. And they've been heavily involved with this whole lengthy multi-year project to get it this far. And if you have any questions, they're here and we can ask them as part of this. Okay, it looks like we're up and running. Let's see if this works. So there's the 3 sites, Matsu Central, Birch Tree Charter, American Charter. The next slide, I want to highlight how much money we have been spending in lease payments. So this is last year's lease payments. Matsu Central, about $583,000. Birch Tree Charter, $586,000. American Charter, $264,000. So that's about $1.4 million a year that the district is spending on lease payments. And that's something that we want to get away from and not continue doing for perpetuity. In addition to this, there's tenant improvements that have been going on at various places. So in total, it's about 1.7 million a year has kind of been the average for the last 5 years. So that's something that we'd like to stop doing. And I think that's was what started this whole process several years ago. There's a lot of words on the next slide. I'll only read the first sentence. It's borough code, and it's a relevant borough code to this situation, 19.08.020F2. An existing charter school that has been in existence for 5 years or more may request the borough and the school district acquire permanent facilities for the charter school. And so that's why our 2 charter schools have requested this, because they don't want to keep paying lease payments for forever. Here's the timeline. It's been very protracted. Back in October of 2019, and I wasn't here, so I can't remember the order. The first one of these schools was approved by the board. And then over the next several months until February of 2020, the other 2 were approved by the school board. And then COVID happened and everything came to a screeching halt for quite a long time. And then as COVID changed through last year's site selection committee met many times about this. The 3 principals, well, I guess 2 of the 3 principals were here for that process and they could answer questions about last year. Last night, it went to the planning commission. Both the site selection committee and the planning commission approved it. There were board members on it, as well as assembly members I know have been involved. And then we're hopeful that tonight the assembly will approve these 3 sites. So Matsu Central, it was founded in 1972. It's formerly the correspondence school. It has had no permanent home for 49 years. So we've been paying lease payments for a long time. It's the largest school in the district, 2,200 kids. It offers hybrid in-person learning, and its lease expires in June 30 of 2024. There's a typo on this slide. It says the preferred location is the Springfield subdivision, but it's actually supposed to be the Stringfield subdivision. This is a plot of where that property is. Next slide for Matsu. It's a, excuse me, consolidation of current leases at both Matsu Central campuses in Wasilla and Palmer. So we'd get out of 2 leases. It's centrally located for Matsu Central families. it's our largest school, so being centrally located in the valley is important. It's got roadway access from major arterial transportation corridors. It's adjacent to the Mat-Su Central College, supporting dual high school and college credit. And the location is supported by the school board, as well as Mat-Su Central Academic Advisory Committee. Maybe I'll pause there. If there's any specific questions about Mat-Su Central, Stacy McIntosh would be our very best person in the back to answer it. I could have Stacy come up.
I just had a question about being adjacent to Mat-Su College, because are you just saying close? Because I don't see it actually, okay, that's what it means. Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure I
Yeah,
have
not
the
on the
location
same
right.
campus, yeah. Okay, if there's no more, I'll go on to Birch Tree. Birch Tree's been in operation for more than 10 years. It's based on a Waldorf philosophy. It's currently serving about 400 students, and its lease expires in June 30 of 2025. Its preferred location is on the same property that Shaw Elementary is on. And actually, one of the benefits of co-locating them, there's lots of benefits to co-locating schools on the same property, is it would be an opportunity to address the traffic problem that we currently have at Shaw. So it's a way to kill two birds with one stone. The last slide about Birch Tree. Its site is accessible for Birch Tree families, centrally located in Wasilla and Palmer. It's got lots of ample outdoor space, which is super important for Birch Tree's learning model. And of course, the location is supported by the school's academic policy committee as well as the school board. If there's any particular questions about Birch Tree, Principal Brant Bone is here and he'd be the best person to answer those. All right, American Charter also has been in operation for more than 10 years. It's currently located in that strip mall type building out on the parks. It uses standards-based education model. It serves primarily Meadow Lakes, Big Lakes, and Wasilla. Has very loyal parents. It has an increasing enrollment that's been going on for a while, and the lease is being renewed year to year. The preferred location for it is a large piece of property on Selden. It's the Selden Church Road. There's the plot. It would be in just a small portion of this property in the lower right on the picture. And the reason why this is the preferred site, it's located within the current area of the American Charter families. It's west of Wasilla, good roadway access. Allows the school to utilize the natural habitat, which is really important for their place-based learning. And of course, it's supported by the school's academic policy committee and the school board. So if there's any questions about that, Principal Barron's here.
Ms. Nowers?
What is the enrollment at American Charter?
194 right now.
Any other questions? So as I understand it, since it's on consent, I know that they all have jobs. I want to let them go if it's just going to remain on consent and not get pulled.
It hasn't been pulled and nobody's going to pull it.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Hint, hint. Okay, thank you, Dr. Trainee. Thank you, everybody, for coming in on this. Appreciate it. Mr. Spaulding, did you want to report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Todd Smolden with the Mat-Su Governor's Office. I just wanted to come up here and say I have nothing to report. But I will say this, that it is very unfortunate that the legislature continues to spin its wheels, not put together a long-range fiscal plan, not put together some kind of solution for the PFD. And yeah, I would say it's not surprising, but it is still disappointing for a large percentage of Alaskans. If anybody has any questions, I'll take them, but I know you have a long agenda and other reports to take, so.
Okay,
I see none. Thank you.
looks good. I got my permanent fund check in the mail. So.
You got a third of it.
Well, that's good news. Ms. Quill, did you want to report? Welcome too.
There we go. Yeah. Members of the Assembly, Mayor Halter, Manager Brown, I'm here to give you just a brief update on the activities of the Mat-Su Convention and Visitors Bureau and ask for your support for Ordinance 21-108 at the public hearing on November 16th and introduced tonight. Tomorrow, we'll be distributing our quarterly newsletter detailing our summer marketing campaigns, tracking website traffic at alaskavisit.com that's up 113% over pre-pandemic 2019, announcing a cultural and heritage tourism presentation and workshop with a national speaker in January, and publishing Borough Assembly and Mayor candidate responses to our tourism survey. I think the manager should consider including our newsletter of activities on its weekly web posts for the public to view. You're welcome to do that. We are in the process of our FY21 audit, and the final report, along with our annual report, will be distributed to the Borough Administration and Assembly early next month. Our annual meeting and election results of our new board members will take place virtually November 12th. In July, I graduated from a 2-year professional development Destination International Certified Destination Management Executive Accreditation. It was a journey that has given our organization many best practices, tools to navigate the pandemic. Because we are near an award announcement for the EDA, from the EDA on our Gateway Visitor Center grant application, I decided it was timely to distribute to you my final research exam paper that focused on the development and opportunities of the Gateway Visitor Center project from conception to today. I hope you had the opportunity to read and reflect on the 12-year collaborative history of how we got here today. On tonight's agenda, Ordinance 21-108 is introduced for public hearing on November 16th. It's asking the Assembly to accept $156,030 contribution from the Mat-Su CVB towards the 20% match requirement of $1,670,000 that has been secured and approved by the borough in previous legislation. This is just a formality required by the EDA in requesting supplemental information documenting the match is unencumbered and available if the grant is awarded. When we submitted the grant application in October 2020, the 20% match included in Borough Capital Project number 10022 included funds from the sale of the old visitor center, $282,000 remaining from a state capital Gateway Visitor Center grant, and $70,000 from state DOT right-of-way funds from the Glen Highway redesign. We identified the remaining $156,000 match would come from future bed tax funds or donations. Because this grant award is time sensitive, the Mat-Su CVB stepped up to commit funds from our reserve to keep the application moving. But we will come back to the Assembly in the future for reimbursement. If you have any questions about this ordinance, please reach out to me before the public hearing on November 16th. I hope you will swiftly approve this legislation to support the EDA grant application that is being considered for award. And finally, I will not be here November 16th for Mayor Halter's final meeting. So I want to go on record to thank you for your respectful leadership and your support of the visitor industry and the economic impacts it brings to our borough. And I will miss you, Mayor Halter. And if there's any questions about this ordinance, I can take some now. The process has been already before this body 4 different times and approved. It's just a formality from the EDA right now. So you can reach out to me between now and November 16th. So
Okay, thank you very much.
thank you.
I may skip November 16th too. No, just kidding. Okay, let's see. Joint Assembly School Board Committee. Any meetings or no meetings on that one? So any other public relation reports from anyone, assembly or staff? Okay, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Assembly had requested a COVID-19 update from the State Department of Health and Social Services. So I'm going to reach out. I hope Commissioner Crum and or Dr. Zink, our Chief Medical Officer for the state of Alaska, are you online with us this evening?
Yes, we are, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please go ahead. They're going to do a short update and then take questions from the Assembly. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you for reaching out. I appreciate you opening the meeting with a Iditarod Trail song. That was a nice thing to dial into. Well, thank you for having us. We're here to just kind of give you an update on the overall situation of COVID across the state, some access-specific numbers if you'd like, and to answer any questions. So on the line, I do have Dr. Zink, and I'll throw it to her to share a couple items, and then we will just take your questions and try to move along because we've got a robust agenda. Dr. Zink?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And I wish that we were there in person. Sorry, we're trying to multitask between a couple other things here today. And I appreciate also, Mayor, your remembrance of Hobo Jim, who know and love fondly for all of his service and fun songs that he always had. So thank you for that. And it's great to hear about the schools. So a couple updates, so COVID-19 is still here. I think we're all fairly aware of that. We've had a lot of cases. We've been the leader in the nation for the most cases per 100,000, but we've been plateauing. So over the last 4 weeks, we've been slowing down in our acceleration and more kind of holding steady. The last 4 days, we did have a slight decrease in cases, which was fantastic to see, but we always have some delays over holiday weekends. And so looking forward to the rest of the week and what comes out there to really give a better projection and really hoping for a much more downward trend moving forward. Unfortunately, we did announce a whole bunch of deaths. We had 65 additional deaths that we shared today. Those were primarily in September. 10 of them were in October, but the rest of them were in September. The vast majority, over 40 of them, were in September, and then a few prior to that. It does take a while for the death certificate process because we really wait for the clinician to fill out their best opinion of the cause of death, and then it's filed to the death certificate process, and then it comes to us as a state. And so we sometimes get those in batches, which is what came out here. Again, we always encourage people to look at the onset date than necessarily the cases overall, as well as the death and hospitalizations. Our hospitals remain stretched with the number of cases. Big shout out to Mat-Su Regional Hospital. As I think many people know, I clinically work there on the nights and weekends, and it's just been really inspiring to see the healthcare community come together and find new and creative ways to care for patients. We want to make sure that the door is always open for every patient who needs and wants care at any point. And so it's been fantastic to see them change and shift, and I just really want to appreciate the healthcare workers, the nurses, the techs working frontline, trying to make sure that every Alaskan, everyone in the Mat-Su is able to get the care they need. And Mat-Su honestly has worked as a transfer center in many ways, particularly earlier on in this surge, being able to accept patients from other places in the state when they were really surging. And it's been really great to see the collaborative work within the healthcare sector overall. Alaska's hospitals have been running about 20% of their overall patients have been COVID positive. We get that information directly reported to us specifically from the hospitals, and it's reported onto our dashboard on a regular basis. Mat-Su has been particularly full. So currently 44.2% of everyone hospitalized at Mat-Su Regional right now is COVID positive. And Mat-Su's been having consistently kind of the highest rates of hospitalization if you're looking at the total number of people in the hospital because of COVID-19. You'll see on our dashboard, it says that 14 out of 14 ICU beds are currently occupied. That is an underrepresentation of the number of patients truly in the hospital needing ICU care if they've been using non-traditional ICU bed placement to be able to care for patients. But again, it's been just phenomenal to watch the clinical staff From a state perspective, we have helped to get additional healthcare workers to help support the healthcare system, and that's made a gigantic difference and being able to move forward. So our biggest tool out of this pandemic has been keeping ourselves healthy, well, exercising, taking care of our mental and physical health. And then vaccines really teach our body how to be able to fight off this virus once we see it. Unfortunately, Delta is so transmissible and moves so quickly from person to person that if we're interacting with people, we're likely going to see it. It's heartbreaking to see patients on a regular basis so sick from this disease when the real hospitalizations and deaths, not 100%, but can really be minimized from vaccination. So looking at the state as a whole, 64.3% of those 12 and above have received at least one dose of COVID-19 vaccination, with 59.5% receiving both doses. MAT2 is a little bit behind that region. So we're at 47.2% of those 12 and above have received one dose, with 42.6% of those in the MAT2 region have received both of their doses of vaccine. A couple updates on vaccine. We do see that the older someone is, the more underlying health conditions. Unfortunately, Colin Powell was a very prominent example here recently. It's someone who's older and underlying health conditions, their body has a harder time mounting a strong response to vaccination. And it's part of the reason why vaccinations not only help protect that individual, but those around them. So the less cases we have, the less chance that we're going to have people who don't mount a super strong response be exposed to COVID-19. And because of that, we also are recommending boosters in certain limited populations. And we are seeing kind of a decline or a decrease in immunity over time with the vaccines. And so particularly with so much COVID still circulating, I want to make sure that people are protected. So those who are 65 and above, as well as those who are 50 and above with underlying health conditions who has been 6 months or more and received the Pfizer vaccine, are encouraged to consider getting a Pfizer booster, and it can get it anywhere you want. Remember, the Pfizer vaccine is fully FDA approved at this point, and all the Pfizer vaccine that we have in stock in the state is that approved vaccine. For those who received Moderna or J&J, there is new information coming out showing some benefit actually from crossing vaccine types. If you receive J&J, considering an mRNA vaccine in a booster type, that has been approved by the FDA, but we are waiting on the ACIP. So hopefully in the next week, we'll have more information on that for booster doses for those who have been 6 months or more out from either their J&J and Moderna. And then the other information we're watching closely is the data that has been submitted to the FDA for the 5 to 11-year-old age group. So that has been submitted. They are currently in the process of reviewing that. There is a meeting coming up with an ACIP meeting, kind of a larger vaccine meeting, November 2nd and 3rd. So that if that is approved and the data looks supportive that it is beneficial for kids in that age group to get vaccinated, then we will go ahead and start rolling that out. But we're waiting for that data, but we are planning and preparing for that early fall. So as we kind of continue to move through, I just want to thank so many in the MATSU community for supporting healthcare workers, supporting our kids being in school, and supporting mitigation efforts so that we can keep our neighbors, our friends, our loved ones healthy, keep our businesses moving forward, and is thinking towards the holiday season, making sure that you and your loved ones are protected prior to a gathering to really minimize this and try to put this pandemic behind us in as many ways as possible. So with that, I'll turn it back over and we're happy to take any questions.
Okay, questions from Assembly? Mr. Crum or Dr. Zink? Mr. Sumner?
Yeah, so through the mayor, I guess we're, what, about a year and a half into this thing or something like that? And my understanding is that the majority of the patients in the ICU are not in the ICU with COVID, but do you think that the state certificate of need laws have created a barrier to increasing hospital capacity and ICU capacity in the state to address this?
Through the mayor,
go for it.
Assemblymember Sumner. No, we don't believe so, because one aspect that is with the federal public health emergency that's issued by Health and Human Services, they gave us what's called Section 1135 blanket waivers. What that helped do is actually allow for alternate care sites for care to be provided differently and in different locations than normal across the board. And so this has allowed us to be flexible and for clinics to do this. You saw this by clinics that would actually do vaccines in parking lots or testing in parking lots. Those would not be normal standards of care. And so we haven't seen that as a limitation throughout.
Other questions? Mr. Sumner?
So what if anything is the state's recommended treatment scheme for COVID-19, whether early treatment or on hospitalization?
So, Mr. Summers, through the mayor, I appreciate that question. Couple different things. You know, the first thing that we always recommend is prevention. Viruses are really, really hard to treat. They've always been hard to treat. And our best tool against viruses have almost always been vaccination. So most of our vaccinations there, they require our cells to replicate. And that's why they don't work well with things like antibiotics that really attacks the cellular structure of bacteria. So they're just very different than bacteria in that sense. So as mentioned at the beginning, number one thing, taking care of our health, making sure that we're exercising mentally and physically well. All of those things put us at higher likelihood of having complications from viruses. There was a recent study that showed that physical activity, regardless of your underlying health conditions, help minimize your chance of severe complications from COVID-19. So critically important, and has been, as you mentioned, this has been going on for a while. We've had patients who have lost 100 pounds during this pandemic, and it's been great to see them really kind of put that effort into their health. The next thing is really trying to minimize their exposure. And so again, distancing, masking can help with that to minimize exposure overall. There's more and more data that the more prolonged and the higher amount of exposure, the sicker you may get. So we see that with household contacts versus brief exposure, so minimizing your exposure. The third one is making sure that when you see the virus, you can take it down as quickly as possible. And the best way to do that is to teach your own natural immune system to do it. And that's by having a healthy immune system that's being taught by vaccination. But even with that, we see people who, both vaccinated and not, who do get COVID-19. Depending on the timing of when they were exposed to that virus, there are different treatment options that can be useful at different stages. And so it's really important to make sure that the timing goes with the specific treatment. So in the early phase, kind of in that first 7 to 10 days, that's when the virus is really replicating a lot. And so things that help to minimize the viral replication are going to be most useful. And the biggest one there is monoclonal antibodies. That's the one that we have the most studies behind. And that's why the sooner someone has symptoms, the more you can get tested and be able to get monoclonal antibodies. Those are manufactured antibodies that can support your own body to kind of take apart that virus and destroy it before it can get into your cells and really, really replicate moving forward. There's a lot of things that are being studied in that area, but to date, our best data right there is monoclonal. Make sure that you're treating underlying symptoms. So if people are having a lot of nausea, vomiting, sometimes medication can be really useful for that. If people have underlying health conditions, making sure they're controlled, people with COPD, asthma, talking to your doctor, everyone's health condition is very different. And so it's important that you really talk to your clinician about what makes sense for you. And then later on, some people really clear the virus, but unfortunately, other people start to get a lot of inflammation. And then that's when their lungs really start to fill up. They can start to have kidney problems. The vast majority of the patients in the ICU are because of COVID-19 right now, both in Mat-Su as well as in the state of Alaska overall. And in that inflammatory phase, there are other treatments. Steroids are the ones that are shown to kind of be most useful at this time. But once you're in that inflammatory phase, it becomes harder to treat. We do a lot of symptomatic treatment, such as high flow nasal cannula oxygen. So really kind of pushing a lot more oxygen into the lungs to help open up the lungs. Movement can make a really big difference. So laying people on their stomach or on their side, what's called pronation, can help to open up their lung, and then supporting their overall body. So making sure their kidneys are still functioning, heart, and it can be quite complex depending on people's underlying health conditions and how their individual body is responding. So those are kind of the general outlays of it. We are going to go through an hour-long echo talking about treatment in much more detail this Thursday from 5 until 1. It's open to the public. And then every Wednesday from 12 until 1, we do a public science echo on a regular basis and encourage the public to come to any of those. We have healthcare providers, pharmacists, and others kind of talking about the current status of the data, and we continue to follow it because we continue to learn a lot about this virus moving forward.
Mr. Sumner?
Sorry, and I got one more question through the mayor. So I think there's been some news reports of the vaccine falling in calculated efficacy. Have you guys looked at how much of the decline in efficacy is due to variants versus efficacy being calculated as a relative measure between the vaccinated and unvaccinated population, and that you would expect as some natural immunity builds up in the unvaccinated population that you would see that reduction in efficacy? So I suppose, have you looked at the separate vaccines individually to see if they all are falling equally in efficacy or if there's some disparity? So I guess you would expect a disparity between the vaccines if more of the effect is due to variants and more of a general decline if it was just due to increase in natural immunity.
Yeah, so through the mayor, another fantastic question. I think that we can rely some on state data, but we also need to rely on national and international data because the more that we kind of splice down smaller and smaller groups, looking at times, ages, vaccine types, we just don't have a lot of people in the states. There can be some limitations along those lines. As you mentioned, variants made a really big difference. So really the data now is kind of pre-Delta and post-Delta. And when Delta becomes the predominant variant, we did see a drop in efficacy with all three vaccines kind of across the board. So both in our state as well as across the country and across the world. But since Delta has become the predominant variant, that's been holding pretty steady since that time. We have been looking at different types of vaccines, and we do put out a monthly report that looks at reinfection rates, that looks at vaccine breakthrough, that looks at vaccine breakthrough over time and by different type of vaccine, as well as age adjusted. We also look at hospitalizations and death rates, and I'm happy to send that link so you guys can take a look at it. I encourage the public to take a look at it. We continue to update it and try to improve it. What we saw is that all three vaccines over time did decrease in efficacy, but still were much better than no vaccine at all. So they were still doing a really good job, particularly at minimizing hospitalizations and deaths. The biggest place that we saw decreased efficacy was in symptomatic disease. So someone who may have gotten no symptoms before may now get smaller symptoms or mild symptoms, but we were seeing really good holding up against both hospitalizations and deaths for the most part. I will tell you that the Moderna vaccine looks like it's holding up a bit better than the Pfizer and J&J vaccine over time. And again, with the mixing and matching doses, the data that's coming out looks like a booster with an mRNA after the J&J is more effective than a J&J dose after the previous J&J. So there's a little bit of mixing and matching. Again, really encourage you to talk to your provider about what might be best for you. People's health conditions are different, and people have different risk benefits of different vaccines. And over time, particularly when people are older and underlying health conditions, it can be really important to kind of look at those underlying factors. So we have a monthly report on that, and we are currently working on our September data.
So I would like to add that I sent the link to the monthly report. I just sent it to Manager Brown. And on that, as Dr. Zink said, this is for July through August. And they're going through the September data, but it does clearly show that there is a difference between the variants because we do break our data out from January of 2021 until through June, because when the Delta variant became predominant in Alaska, we started to do see changes on the vaccine breakthrough, the reinfection, and hospitalization. But some of the numbers do still bear out. So thank you for asking that, and I hope you guys get access to it.
Okay, Ms. Nowers?
Yeah, thank you for taking time in your really busy schedule. That public health echo, I found it very helpful on Wednesdays from 12 to 1. It's basically a Zoom webinar. I've always gotten there by going to Facebook and the Alaska Department of Health and Social Services site, but if somebody's interested in that and they want to hear information from the state health and social services and be able to ask them questions, where should we point them to find out more and to be able to join that as well as other resources?
Yeah, you made my day for enjoying it. We put a lot of time and effort into those and try to just be as transparent and open to the public and take questions on a regular basis. So on our DHSS website, we have information how to link to it. I just Googled DHSS COVID Echo, and it's called the Public Science Echo, and you can usually get to it pretty quickly, but we'll also send you all that link as well. And then, as you mentioned, the Facebook, DHSS's Facebook always posts it. So you can register for it so that it's weekly in your calendar and that's there on a regular basis, so you can pop in. And then, as mentioned, we try to keep our presentations quite short so that we can take lots of questions from the public. We usually get more questions, unfortunately, than we can get through in an hour, but try to get through all the themes that we possibly can.
Thank you.
Dr. Zink, Mayor Halter, I had 2 Moderna shots in February, so I want to get a booster shot. Is it my choice to say I want to have a Pfizer booster or a Moderna booster, and what is your recommendation?
Yeah, so Mayor, appreciate that question. It's great to hear you're vaccinated. We are waiting on the ACIP's final recommendation on that, so we're super close on it. It is always your choice on what you want to do. for your vaccination, except if it's completely outside of the guidance from the EUA. And so that's what we're waiting on right now. So within the next week, we should have recommendations. Of note, the Moderna vaccine booster is a lower dose than the full dose Moderna. And so instead of 100 micrograms, it's a 50 microgram dosing. So we'll have that information out shortly. And right now, the mRNA vaccines, particularly the Moderna, look to be holding up super well overall. So like my mom who got Moderna, I'm anxiously awaiting that so that she'll go get her booster. So waiting for that ACIP meeting because she's got some underlying health conditions and it would benefit her. So hopefully in the next week, and we'll have more information soon.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Any other questions for Mr. Crum or Dr. Zink? If not, I want to thank both of you for really taking great care of Alaska, and especially the Mat-Su Borough. We really do appreciate it. And so thank you, both of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brown?
All right, moving on, and Mr. Spalding, that takes you off the hook for a little bit on those types of questions. Appreciate you helping us get that set up as well. Quick comment on Resolution 21115. That's titled the Potentially Federally Funded Infrastructure Projects. You'll see it on tonight's agenda. It's being introduced tonight for public hearing on November 16th. I just wanted to say a couple quick words. The intent of this resolution is to obtain Assembly approval for projects that the Assembly supports administration pursuing should federal funding become available through a federal infrastructure bill or via other federal funding. So if you have projects, I would encourage you, if you would like to have those added to that resolution, to consider those amendments over the next couple of weeks and get those to me or to staff so we can kind of help develop the cost estimate, narrative, title, and get that through the clerk's office. It'll just make for a smoother process on November 16th to have that prepared in advance. I've already received a couple of requests, and that was the intent of introducing it tonight, allowing it to be out there on public record for the next month for folks to kind of mull it over, and then we'll take it up on November 16th with the current Assembly. And then lastly, I wanted to mention a heads up that's coming. As you're aware, the state had appropriated $10 million for pavement rehabilitation. So we're in the process of working through that grant agreement with the state of Alaska. That is intended to address pavement and roadway rehabilitation and preservation, including work to the Parks Highway and the Wasilla population corridor and other areas of need as determined by the borough. And then it goes into a laundry list of all the different refurbishments that can be made to that. So a resolution will be coming forward for your consideration on November 16th with projects that could be included in this grant. So staff are going to put together a recommendation of how we might allocate that $10 million, but we're going to put that before you and have you kind of discuss and debate that. So as staff move forward with that, it's kind of got the Assembly seal of approval. So we are in the process of putting those projects together now, and they will be brought forward on November 16th. So I just wanted to call your attention to that and give you a heads up as we continue to work through that over the next couple of weeks. That's all for the manager's comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. Mr. Spropoulos?
No report for tonight. We do have an executive session later at the end of the meeting, so we'll be having some discussions later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
Just an update for the public and to the Assembly regarding Synexus. Synexus is the call-in system we use for the public to call into Assembly meetings, Planning Commission meetings, and Plating Board meetings. We had heard from the public the last meeting that there's been issues. IT has been working with Synexus to solve this issue. I do believe they've got, maybe have it pinpointed and they're trying to work on it. IT has determined the issues are about 10% of the calls. So for public members that want to call into meetings, if you hang up and dial back in, if you can't get through, that's the way we're going to work through it at this point in time. Maybe by the next meeting, since it is a month away, we'll have it taken care of. But I wanted the public and the Assembly to know about that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's take a look at it. Agenda item F, citizens correspondence. Any comments? Here none, they are presented as usual. Madam Clerk, let's read IMs, please.
IM 21-193, reporting the conclusion of contract for bid number 19077B to Dirt Works Incorporated for Lake Louise Boat Launch Project IM 21215, informing the assembly of the manager's signature on and the submittal of the fiscal year 2023 Human Services Community Matching Grant application to the Alaska State Department of Health and Social Services. IM 21222, informing the assembly of 13 individual fiscal year 2022 winter trail care and grooming grant agreements that will be provided to the manager for signature.
Okay, any comments on the items as just read? Hearing none, the items are presented. There are no persons to be heard. We're at audience participation. Did I say, oh, like I said, we're at public hearings. This is not my best night, by the way. We have reached public hearings. You will have 3 minutes to testify. For people who are testifying by phone, once you hear the item you want to speak to, read into the record, please hit *3 and you will hear your hand has been raised. You'll know it's your time to speak when you hear your line has been unmuted. Then please state your name for the record and spell your last name so we have that on record here. Madam Clerk, ordinance 21-100.
An ordinance approving the sale of borough-owned land identified as Lot 927, Caswell Lake subdivision to adjacent property owner Brad McCourt on behalf of the McCourt Family Trust pursuant to MSB 2310-230 agreements by application. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Staff report. Mr. Phillips is coming forward. Welcome.
Good evening, Eric Phillips, Community Development Director. Ordinance 21-100 is basically the sale of a substandard lot that we acquired through a foreclosure 40 plus years ago to an adjoining property owner who also has a substandard lot for fair market value.
Okay, thank you. I'll open a public hearing at this time. Clerk says we don't have a sign-up list. Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this issue? Anybody on the telephone? Okay, we will close the public hearing at this time. Councilmember Bovee, could you move this for us?
I move to adopt ordinance 21-100.
Any discussion? Any objection to passing this ordinance as just read? Hearing no objection, that legislation passes. Madam Clerk, ordinance 21-101 and resolution 21-104.
An ordinance accepting and appropriating COVID-19 disaster relief funds of $17,918.34 from the Federal Emergency Management Agency with accompanying resolution 21-104, a resolution approving the amended budget for COVID-19 disaster relief funds. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Okay, staff report. Ms. Heindel is with us.
Through the mayor to the assembly, this is COVID disaster relief funds to reimburse the borough for monies that have already been spent.
Okay, thank you very much. I will open the public hearing at this time. I don't believe we have a sign-up list. Any telephonics? Anybody in the audience want to speak? Seeing and hearing none, we will close the public hearing at this time. Assemblywoman Bovee, please.
I move to adopt ordinance 21-101 and resolution 21-104.
Any discussion? Any objection to passing this ordinance? Seeing none, the ordinance and resolution passes. Madam Clerk, 21-102 and resolution 21-106.
An ordinance reappropriating $33,600 from the Cash Performance Area-Wide Bond Fund account to the Channel Yet Circle Upgrade Project with accompanying resolution 21-106, a resolution amending the scope of work and budget for the MSB Facility Access Improvements Project, Channel Yet Circle Upgrade. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Okay, staff report, Mr. Dolan.
Terry Dolan, Director of Public Works. The purpose of this legislation is to remove funds from a subdivision agreement that's in default and place it into a project to build the roadway that's the subject of the subdivision agreement.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Sumner.
I was just curious, how often do subdivision agreements go into a default?
Yeah, I might have to ask our permitting folks that. This particular one, the organization that's in default is the borough. So it's really unusual. It was put in place a long time, I think, before any of us were here. But we are going to build the road, so that's the good news.
That's called a confession, by the way. Thank you. Okay. Let's see, I will open the public hearing at this time. Do we have a sign-up list? I guess not. Any telephonics? Anybody in the audience wish to speak to this? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at this time. Assemblywoman Nowers.
I move to adopt ordinance 21-102 and resolution 21-106.
Okay, any discussion? Any objection, Assembly members? Seeing none, that legislation passes. Madam Clerk, ordinance 21-104.
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of area-wide general obligation bonds in one or more series to finance the construction, additions, improvements, betterments, repair, reconstruction, or acquisition of public roads and facilities related thereto in the Matanuska-Susitna Borough, together with all necessary equipment and transportation facilities and the acquisition of lands or rights in lands in connection therewith, and to refund certain outstanding general obligation bonds of the borough, fixing certain details of such bonds and authorizing their sale. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Okay, staff report, Ms. Heindel.
Through the mayor to the assembly, this is authorization needed from the assembly for us to go ahead and sell $12 million in transportation bonds that will be matched by the state, and also to refund $36 million in bonds previously sold. We are anticipating, and based upon the analysis that we've looked at, anywhere between 10 and 11% savings on the refunded bonds.
Was this 2018 road bonds?
The $12 million is part of the 2018 road bond package.
The 3 or 4 projects that the
4 projects.
4 projects, okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Spropoulos?
I do have one thing to add. I was speaking with the finance director regarding this ordinance. I think what we would request the assembly to do is pass this ordinance tonight. We did get some potential changes from the finance team. We don't know how significant those changes are. So what we would ask you to do is pass it tonight, and we can talk with them tomorrow morning. And if need be, we could ask somebody to move to reconsider for purposes of putting it on the next meeting if it's necessary.
Who will you be talking to tomorrow morning?
The finance team and bond counsel.
Okay, bond counsel?
Yeah.
This is something that came through late.
Yeah.
Okay. So you will have some definite answers by tomorrow, close of business?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Any questions, Assembly? Okay, thank you very much. I will open the public hearing at this time. We do not have a sign-up list. Any telephonics? Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at this time. Assemblywoman Bovee, please.
I move to adopt ordinance 21-104.
Okay, any objection to passing this? They're going to, Ms. Nowers.
Just a couple questions on this. So first, I just want to make sure I understood it correctly. If I read it right, the last time we refinanced bonds, we saved about $5.2 million. And if we're able to refinance the new debt, we're looking at maybe 4.2 million in savings to be determined.
Right, between 10% and 11%, so
Okay.
on the $36 million that we're refunding.
Okay. And if we go out with $12 million in bonding debt, where does that put us with our, where we like to see our debt load sit?
We are still significantly lower than where our debt capacity allows us to go.
Okay.
So I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I can get those to you tomorrow.
And can you give us any hint of the issue you're possibly dealing with, if that's appropriate?
I think it's more language than anything. The original bond ordinance was run through council, and late, while I was gone late, we got some revised language, but I'm not sure that, Nick and I are not sure if it really changes the intent of the legislation.
Okay, it's not a numbers issue, it's a language issue.
it's a language
Okay,
issue.
thank you, that's very helpful.
For example, one of the issues is part of the bond ordinance empowers the manager and the finance director, and you grant them authority to go out in time and look at the market and sell within the next 120 days, I believe it is. One of the edits is each of the manager and finance director acting individually. So it's to add those words that we're not sure matters. Depends on how important it is to the underwriter.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or dialogue on this ordinance? Any objection to passing the ordinance? At this point in time, Mrs. Propus has advised that if needed, they could ask for reconsideration from one of you by tomorrow. Okay, so no objection, that ordinance passes. Now we're at audience participation. Glad we finally got here. This is your opportunity to speak to the assembly on any topic. If you're on telephonic and would like to speak under audience participation, please hit *3. You will hear your hand has been raised. You have 3 minutes to testify. We have a sign-up list. Okay. Joy Crum. I think he just stepped. I think I thought him just leave. Elaine Ridlin. There you go. Come on forward, ma'am. Thank you for coming.
I think that we were all supposed to leave because we're all here for the schools. But we decided to stay. So I'll say my piece. I'm Elaine Ridlon. Good evening, Mayor and Assembly members. I'm here to advocate for the building of the new school for American Charter Academy. I've been with the school for over 11 years with all 7 of my children attending throughout their school years. The oldest 2 have graduated with honors and one has completed a private pilot's and has his airplane mechanic licensing and is continuing to work on his commercial pilot's license. The second one has almost completed her associate's degree with UAA. There are 2 at Matsu Career Tech and the last 3 are currently attending our American Charter Academy. I've contributed much of the success of my children's education to the foundation they've received and the can-do attitude at the school. Their motto is close to perfect, far from normal. This has served our family well. One of our favorite community events is the Trail of Remembrance, which AMC supports and sponsors the community and our veterans. The Trail of Remembrance is a 5K race where the students and staff honor and remember all of our U.S. veterans and active duty militaries, members of all branches of our U.S. military with signs along the trail, ending with a barbecue at the school. I know that the dedication of the principal, teachers, and assistants cannot be compared. What I like most about the learning experience is the multi-age classrooms where children can grasp the opportunity to reach above and beyond their grade level or receive additional help from older classmates, where students get to interact with classmates with various backgrounds, maturity levels, which in turn turns each classroom into its own unique family for years of learning together. With all this said, I'm here to support American Charter Academy in building a new school that will let other families in the community experience the American Charter way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. When is the Trail of Remembrance? When?
It's in May,
It's in May.
or April, May, depending on the time of year.
You get us the exact date. I want to challenge assembly members to race in it. And,
5K.
we'll handicap Mr. Yon. Thank you. Michael Kaler. Michael Kaler? Might be one of the few people gone. Brant Bowen? Brant left 2. Stacy McIntosh? I think all the school people, Matsu Central. Sion Emmert? Looks like everybody's gone there. Anybody else wish to speak in the audience, under audience participation that's not on the sign-up list? Anybody telephonic? Okay, we will close out audience participation at this time. We'll go to the consent agenda, Madam Clerk. Nothing was pulled.
Resolution 21076, a resolution establishing that financing of energy improvement projects through assessment serves a valid public purpose and related matters, PACE program. Resolution 21108, a resolution selecting a permanent site for Matsu Central School within Lot 1, Stringfield Subdivision, Plat Number 2020-96, located in Section 34, Township 18 North, Range 1 East, Seward Meridian. Resolution 21109, a resolution selecting a permanent site for the American Charter Academy within a portion of Tract A of Alaska State Land Survey number 2004-18, plat number 2007-167, Palmer Recording District, 3rd Judicial District, Resolution 21-110, a resolution selecting a permanent site for Birch Tree Charter School within a portion of the government lot 1 in northeast quarter, northwest quarter, section 30, township 18 north, range 1 east, Seward Meridian, Palmer Recording District, 3rd Judicial District. Resolution 21-111, a resolution supporting the submittal of an Economic Development Administration Build Back Better Regional Challenge grant application with the Fairbanks North Star Borough for the development of a rail and natural gas infrastructure providing economic development and opportunity and improving resiliency. Resolution 21-116, a resolution authorizing the manager to enter into an agreement with Bond Brothers Logging LLC for the Yoder Road timber sale. AM 21-106, awarded bid number 22056C to the True North Emergency Equipment Incorporated, and the contract amount of $488,718, purchase Spartan tender.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Senator Bovee, could you move that for us?
I move to approve the consent agenda as read into the record by the clerk.
Any objection? Hearing and seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. And for you charter schools, congratulations on your land. There is no unfinished business. So now we have a reconsideration that was moved ahead. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? So I guess it's Mr. Sumner's reconsideration, so you could.
Let me read it in.
Okay, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 21-101, a resolution approving a change to the fiscal year 2022 schedule of rates and fees for central landfill and all transfer sites to add a special levy pickup truck rate of $10.
Okay, now, Mr. Sumner. You want to go forward with the reconsideration? I guess is where we start.
I guess, I move to reconsider resolution 21-101.
Okay, so the first issue will be, we'll vote on whether or not somebody wants to reconsider. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? So is there any objection to reconsideration? Mr. Two objects? Okay, no objection. So the reconsideration is valid. And so Mr. Sumner, go ahead. State your.
I just want to be clear to, if I could, Mr. Mayor, at this point, we're on the main motion again, like the main motion hasn't passed.
Okay.
Well, I suppose I would offer an amendment to change the rate from $10 to $20.
So you're moving to change resolution 21-101 in the last section to add a special level pickup truck rate rather than $10, be $20. Okay, everybody got that? So it's a raise from 10 to 20. Discussion? Ms. Nowers?
I believe at the last meeting, I think we lost our public works director, but I believe they said the average pickup load cost was $41. So I guess I don't know if I'm offering a secondary amendment to amend that to 41.
I think they're trying to get Mr. Dolan right now. Pardon? Was that a secondary? Did you move a secondary? The clerk wants to know, or is that
I
just discussion?
would like some guidance from the clerk on that.
This is a primary amendment right now, so a secondary could be to move to strike 20 and insert what you're looking at.
I think that's what I'm offering, yeah.
And what is the amount you're looking at?
If now that we have Director Dolan, if we could get what the estimated average cost of a pickup load, I believe the figure last time given us was $41.
$41 is what we believe the cost is.
Okay, 41.
Okay, so we have a secondary amendment changing Mr. Sumner's amendment from $20 to $41. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Correct. Right now, we're on the secondary amendment, yes.
Any objection to the secondary amendment? Mr. Tu, you want to speak to it?
I'd object, and $20 sounds fair enough. That's double what I was asking for, so I would ask the assembly to go along with it.
Okay, Mr. Hale?
I'd just like to say that the average truck bed is approximately 2 yards, so that would be about $34. I think that's more in line with what we're looking at than
So
41.
in favor of the 41 or the,
And I'm not in favor of 41. That would be increase rather than a reduction. Last time we had this up, we had an amendment for $30, and I supported that as a way to kind of give folks a break, but not cut our own throats at the landfill. And I think I'll support $20 as well, but 41 is too steep.
so we're still on the 41 number. Any more discussion? Ms. Nowers?
I still maintain the same objection to this overall legislation, that there's no fiscal analysis and there's different size pickup beds. So it's just not fair to have somebody with a pickup bed, the third the size of other pickup beds, pay the same as somebody bringing in 3 times the load. But if you want to amend it with no fiscal analysis to $34, if that's what your, rough analysis showed, I won't object to a friendly amendment to my secondary amendment.
Yes, Mr. McKee.
I'd like the clerk to tell me what is before the assembly right now.
Right now, $41 is before the assembly on a secondary amendment.
I call a question.
Okay. There is objection, so just go ahead and vote on whether you want to approve Ms. Now. Is there objection to calling the question? No objection.
I'm going to reset it right now.
You voted early, Mr. Hale. Okay, we're on $41. Yes or no, please?
Mr. Mayor, it failed. Assembly Member Nowers in support.
Now we're on the First Amendment by Mr. Sumner, $20. Yes or no? Please vote.
Yes, pass.
You want to discuss it some more?
I want to move an amendment to $34 because, and I'll speak to it. If we're gonna do this, it's not a good idea, but you gotta make it fair, somewhat fair across the board. Somebody coming in with a big pickup should not pay less than somebody coming in with 3 bags of garbage in a car. And that's what we set it up as. So I'm gonna move an amendment to change it to 34.
Okay, so we've got, Mr. Two is up first, and then we'll follow with Mr. Young.
It's also $2 a bag. So, I mean, if someone comes in with 3 bags in the back of their pickup, it's not automatically going to go to $20. I mean, it's $6. There you go.
Ms. Nowers?
We could clarify, I think the rule is $2 a bag up to 2 bags, 3 or more. So I come in with a car with 3 bags, I'm paying at the transfer station, I'm paying by the cubic yard. $17.
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Yount, you were.
That's my problem with this.
I was going to ask for some clarification in regard to the bag. And it was $2 per bag. I wasn't sure where the limit was at. It sounds like it's at 2. And then beyond that, it's by the cubic yard. So that was the same thing that I was going to ask about.
Mr. Hale, then Mr. McKee. Mr. Hale first.
I thought it was 3 bags.
Mr. Dolan, let's get this real clear.
I'm getting a text message, I believe, from the division manager. And he didn't give me the answer. It was 2 bags, and I believe that's what it is. But I'll make a very quick check here and see if I can get an answer.
Mr. Sumner.
Is there like a size limit on these bags? Like what does 1 bag equate to in fraction of cubic yard?
Yeah, so it's like pickup trucks. They come in different sizes. The limit is 2 bags. And the standard bag that we normally expect is the kitchen garbage bag, but there are some in between there and the giant leaf bag. At the end of the day, it's a transaction agreement between the driver of the vehicle and the scale house operator or the gate operator as to whether or not that bag meets the standard. So I think the 33 gallons is what I believe is in the rate fee.
Mr. McKee, I skipped over him, so go ahead.
What is the issue before the assembly right now?
Madam Clerk, $34?
To strike $20 and insert $34 in its place.
I call a question.
Okay, question's been called. Everybody agree with the Call the question. Any objection to it? Seeing none, go ahead and vote on $34, yes or no?
Mr. Mayor, it failed with Assemblymember Sumner, Hill, and Nowers in support.
Okay, we're back to $20. It was moved by Senator Sumner. Any objection to $20?
I call the question.
Mr. McKee has called the question.
I have
Thank
an
you, sir.
objection to calling
No,
the
he's
question.
called
I
the
have
question.
another
You don't get to
amendment.
talk right now. Sorry. Any objection to the call of the question? Now you can object to that. Ms. Nowers objects to that. So go ahead, please. Ms. Nowers?
You're voting on calling the question, stopping debate
Do you,
on the primary amendment. Were you able to change it?
Yeah, I'm sorry, clarify for me.
What's on the
Calling the
floor?
question, we're voting on calling the question.
Yes.
So
You're
a
voting
no
on call-
allows
Yeah.
continuance, okay.
correct. Yes. Do you favor calling the question or do you not, is the issue? Any objection to calling the question?
Mr. Mayor, we just voted on it.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Sumner and McKee opposed.
okay. So we're calling the question.
Now we are on the primary amendment.
No, right. We're on the $20.
Yeah.
We didn't want to call.
We're not on the $34. That was voted down. We're on $20. Any objection to the $20 rate that Mr. Sumner? Ms. Nowers, better not be 22 or something.
No, I'm not gonna. I'd like to amend this to remove the change being applied to the landfill. And the reason I would offer this is the landfill actually has a scale. And the way it works now is anything under 200 pounds, you pay $10. Anything over, you pay by the pound. We have a very useful and not cheap tool. And changing this to a level pickup load makes that tool a lot less useful. The other thing is landfills cost a lot of money, and the big expense is opening those cells and closing those cells. So if you know how much poundage somebody is bringing in, it's directly relevant to how much space you're filling that landfill with. And it's a user pay system. So we shouldn't take a very useful tool that we have to fairly allocate fees and make it less useful.
Madam Clerk is up.
I apologize, Assemblymember Nowers, but what's on the floor right now are fees. That's what you would have to amend. So that amendment is not proper at this moment in time.
Can I clarify? I'm just removing the original legislation applied to both the transfer station and
And
the
right now,
landfill.
we're just talking about the fee. That would be another primary amendment after we take care of
Oh.
changing 10 to 20.
Okay, just, yeah, redo all that.
I apologize
Yeah.
after you said all that. I apologize.
Mr. McKee,
Are we on the $20 fee?
we're on the $20 fee.
I call a question.
Thank you. He's my hero tonight. Any objection to the call of the question by the assembly members? Seeing none, go ahead and vote on $20, please. Yes or no?
Mr. Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Bovee opposed.
Okay. So resolution 21-101 has been amended to delete $10 and add, substitute $20. Now, Senator Nowers.
Thank you. All that I said before, I'd like to amend to remove the landfill from this new fee schedule. And I'll wait to speak to the main motion when we get back to that.
Hey, Madam Clerk, go ahead and read that back to us.
I do believe, correct me if I'm wrong, basically this legislation would be changed to only apply to transfer sites.
Mr. Sumner?
Well, I suppose I would object because anybody that would be equal distance between the transfer site and the central landfill would then be incentivized to bring their trash to the central landfill where we have to haul it at additional cost ourselves to. I mean, they'd be incentivized to bring it to the transfer station where we would then have to haul it back to central, so.
Mr. Yant? We got George McKee too, so Mr. Young, Mr. McKee, excuse me.
I can't wait to put this behind us. Jesse is correct. We're gonna see a outward flow of refuse to the transfer stations, which we do spend a lot more money to get it from point A to point B. The other thing is that my district and many of us are already subsidizing some of these outlying districts based on the fact that they don't pay at all. So I would have to object to this one just because of that. Thanks.
Okay, Mr. do you have something urgent coming in?
Sure. While he's waiting for her to answer his phone.
What do we have before the assembly right now?
Madam Clerk? I have no clue, so I'm gonna leave it up to Madam Clerk.
The motion before the assembly is to have this legislation only apply to the transfer sites.
I call the question.
Okay. He's hired. Any objection to calling the question? No objection to calling the question, so vote on the issue before you, which is that the $20 fees only applies to transfer sites. Yes or no?
Mr. Mayor, that failed with Assemblymember Hale, Nowers, and Bovee in support.
Okay. So we're back to resolution 101 with a $20 fee instead of $10. Any more debate? Okay, Ms. Nowers.
Thank you. I think I know where we're headed on this, but I just,
Who?
well, I sure hope so. I sure
Where?
hope there's somebody here
Where?
because this is, we have, as people have noted, we're in the red before on the landfills. And then we raise the rates and we're in the black. We have the ability to do a fiscal analysis on the landfill. I cannot believe you're more concerned about the theoretical person between the two sites deciding to drive all the way out to that site. You're more concerned about that than somebody in their car with 3 bags of garbage, single mom or dad, paying $17 and Bob or Susie in her F-350 paying 10 and dumping way more stuff. And we're all paying for that. So we have the ability to do a fiscal analysis if we are charging the right rate and come up with a real rate, but to sit up here and just throw numbers around like we know and not have any of that in front of us, it's just not good legislating. It's not good government. So I hope I know where we're going on this, but I would urge people and to vote this down. And if you want to come back and have a discussion with fiscal numbers in front of us, let's do that. That's what a business does. So please vote against this.
Mr. Young?
All right, so as I've spoken in the past, I prefer the way that Fairbanks and the Kenai Peninsula do it. Their refuse is free to everyone, but there is nothing in this world that's free. We all pay for it, right? If we don't charge for it at the transfer stations in the central, then we're gonna put it on the mill rate. I still prefer that method based on it. It discourages, by charging, you could discourage some people from taking it. They may be burying it, putting it elsewhere, winding up in our ditches. I want a clean community. I know we're not gonna address that tonight and possibly never, but this as it's written right now is gonna help out the person that it's not gonna help me. I take my stuff in huge trailers. We pay a lot of money for that. It's not gonna help the person who gets the trash can, that can afford the trash can in front of their house. This is just helping probably our more lower income families. I see where Moki's going with this. I know what he's trying to do. And for that reason, I'll support it.
Other comments? I'll give Ms. Nowers because he's probably going to call the question.
I just want to, thank you. I just want to point out that makes no sense. The people who are lower end are driving the junky car with the 3 bags of garbage. The higher end person with the big truck, you've given a break to people with big trucks. Like that is what you are doing. So if you vote yes on that, that's what we did. So I'm all again for lower rates across the board, but it's got to make sense. It's got to be fair.
Now, Mr. McKee.
I call the question.
Any objection to the call of the question? the call of the question is approved. Let's vote on RS 21-101 as amended to a $20 fee. Any objection to passing that ordinance? There is objection, so go ahead and vote yes or no.
Mr. Mayor, it passed with Assemblymember Nowers and Bovee opposed.
Okay. I am gonna issue a re-veto, I guess, so do I do that now, or do you want?
Do it right now.
Okay, I hereby veto or re-veto the transfer fees approved tonight's Assembly meeting under reconsideration requested by Assemblymember Sumner. My reason is the same as the veto I originally issued. However, I will reemphasize this fact, that micromanaging the managers and staff's ability to run the landfill is not in the best interest of the Mat-Su Borough. Mayor Vern Halter dated October 19th, 2021 on the record at Assembly meeting. And set the override after I'm gone, please.
They can act on it now.
Or they can act on it now, or they might hurt my feelings. Okay, you want to act on okay, go ahead, Mr. Two.
I move to override the mayor's veto on resolution 21-101.
Okay, there's a motion to override my veto that was just read. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Didn't we just increase this $10 to $20?
Correct.
Okay. So what did you veto?
I vetoed that.
$10.
I vetoed the whole thing.
Okay, so you're vetoing the $20.
Don't micromanage the borough staff's ability to run the landfill on the correct. Do it at budget time. This
Okay.
has been on for 3 meetings talking about this stuff. It's almost embarrassing. And I'm just saying, do it at the correct time, and that's budget time.
Okay, so you're vetoing everything that has gone on up to here.
Vetoing resolution 21-101 as just amended.
I
under
call a
reconsideration.
question.
Okay. Madam Clerk, it's your deal here. I'm out of it.
So, Mr. Mayor, the question has been called and we need to vote on calling on the question. The calling of the question means to stop the debate on the motion to override the mayor's veto. Assemblymember McKee has moved to stop debate.
Any objection?
Calling the question.
Ms. Nowers objects to calling the question, so Madam Clerk.
I'm not sure where I'm at, actually.
We're calling on the question to stop debate.
So we want to stop the debate.
That's what we're voting on right now.
Okay.
Yes or no?
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, it failed with Assemblymember Sumner, 2, McKee, and Yunt in support. It needs 5 votes.
Okay. Where are we at now, Madam Clerk?
Assemblymembers.
I ain't even looked
I want to
left.
say that the mayor's absolutely right, and I want to appeal to Mr. McKee down there and talk about ants giving birth to elephants and beam me up Scotty. This is really this is fiscal smartness, and it's being fair across the board. And if we want to come back and look, I know you're leaving, but I know you have been a major proponent of us acting like a business up here and being smart with our dollars. And it's not fair to give people using the service more a break, and the rest of us are going to pick up the tab. If we've done an analysis and we can lower rates, let's do that. But so I'll stop there. I know Mr. McKee's going to say call a question, but I had to get my 2 cents in. Thank you.
Anybody else in ahead of Mr. McKee right now? Ms. Bovee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Assemblymember Nowers. I feel like, this is a conversation we should have had a long time ago. It makes no sense fiscally. We already know what it costs to run this landfill, and to charge anything less than that is irresponsible. And I support the mayor's veto.
Okay, now, Mr. McKee.
Now, before I do that, I have a comment. okay? We're all talking about being responsible and fair and all that. What we really want to be fair, we'll make the people in the transfer sites pay exactly the same that we're paying, okay? We're subsidizing those folks out there. All you folks in Willow, all that out there, I'm paying part of your bill. That's not fair, is it? So now I'll call the question.
My bill is $131 a month. I've never seen your check in the mail. Mr. Hale?
Yeah, all this talk about the core area subsidizing the transfer stations. Look, the people in my district in Sutton and Chickaloon and Glacier View, and even to a certain extent in Butte, get very little in return for their tax money. And so if we're subsidizing them a little bit as far as their trash collection goes, good.
Says the question was called, and so no debate is allowed, even though I allowed some debate. So I guess we're at the time of whether or not you want to override the mayor's veto that was read into the record. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Unfortunately, Mr. Mayor, you'd have to vote on calling for the question again.
Oh, boy. Okay. Any objection to call in the question? Hear none by any assembly member. The question has been called, and now, if you want to vote to override my veto or re-veto, now is the time. Yes, Madam Clerk.
If I could explain the vote. Very quick. The motion that's on the floor is to override the mayor's veto. If you agree with overriding the mayor's veto, you would say vote yes. If you agree with the mayor's veto, you would vote no. Now that I've seen some people vote, does anybody need to change their vote?
Everybody got it?
Mr. Mayor, the override has failed with Assemblymember Sumner, Assemblymember 2, Assemblymember McKee, and Hale in support, and now Argent and Bovee opposed. Takes 5 votes to override.
You write their names down, please. All right, we're going to move on. Okay. Executive session. Now, we're at that point in time, Madam Clerk, if we are.
No, we're not, Mr. Mayor. We got to go back into the agenda.
Okay,
And we are now at introductions.
go ahead with introductions, Madam Clerk.
Introduction for public hearing on November 16th are ordinance 21103, ordinance 21105 with accompanying resolution 21107, ordinance 21106 with accompanying resolution 21112, ordinance 21107 with accompanying resolution 21113, ordinance 21108 with accompanying resolution 21114, and resolution 21115.
Ms. Bovee, could you move those?
I move to introduce legislation as read into the record by the clerk and set the public hearings for November 16, 2021.
Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, that legislation is introduced. There's no vacancy report, no new business, no referrals, reconsideration's done, veto's done. Let's go to executive session. Ms. Bovee, could you move us, please?
I move to enter into executive session for matters which by law, municipal charter, or ordinance are required to be kept confidential, and to discuss matters involving consideration of borough records that by law are not subject to public disclosure, and discussion of matters subject to the attorney-client privilege, in particular to discuss Metsu Borough versus Jerome. Those present for the executive session will be the mayor, the assembly, the manager, the attorney, the assistant attorney, and the clerk.
Okay, so we're going to move into executive session. It looks like it's 7:37 PM. We'll recess and go to executive session.